Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernest Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. The transfer portal has been a little bit quiet lately because we've had March Madness going on. The national championship just wrapped up with UConn winning back-to-back national titles. And we had the massive news that John Calipari is leaving Kentucky to become the next head basketball coach of Arkansas. But now that all that's died down a little bit, the transfer portal is going to come back into focus, and it has tonight with an announcement that Tre White is transferring to the Illinois Fighting Illini. This is a big addition for Illinois because they need some transfer portal talent to come into the program because they are losing some of their key players from this year's team, and they have to replace it for next year or Illinois will be a worse team. But I'm going to go over whether Tre White fits for the Illinois Fighting Illini with their roster and whether I believe that Brad Underwood has what it takes to help the Illinois Fighting Illini be a really good team in college basketball next season again. Now, this is a really good sign for Illinois because Brad Underwood has been a name for the Kentucky basketball head coaching job, and I know that a lot of Illinois fans are worried about that because Brad Underwood has done a really good job with Illinois. They're not one of the best programs in college basketball, but they're actually pretty underrated. If you look at Illinois in the all-time wins department, they are 13th in college basketball history in all-time wins, right behind programs like Indiana and St. John's and Purdue that have a lot of basketball history. So Illinois is definitely a better program than people think, and they do have a national championship under their belt, even though it came before the NCAA tournament was founded, and they were a runner-up one time back in 2005, but they have a lot of Elite Eight, Sweet 16s, and tournament appearances. Obviously, they made the Elite Eight this season, but the reason why Illinois had the success that they had this season is because of Terrence Shannon Jr., the transfer that they got from Texas Tech a couple years ago. He was the third leading scorer in college basketball this season and probably the best player in the Big Ten behind Zach Edey. He had some off-the-court issues early in the season, which prevented him from being able to play for Illinois. But once he returned for Illinois in the middle of the season and he got his footing back underneath him, he helped Illinois be a really dangerous team. Marcus Damask was a great transfer portal addition as well that Brad Underwood brought in. Quincy Guerrier and Justin Harmon were solid players. And Coleman Hawkins has been a great program guy the last few years for Illinois. He's always been a player that has kind of been on the fringes of the NBA draft radar, but he kept coming back to Illinois. It doesn't look like he's going to return for another season, though. And then Dane Danger did enter the transfer portal because he lost minutes at Illinois. But the fact is that Illinois has had a lot of success bringing in guys through the portal because a lot of these guys were portal players, and it looks like Illinois is going to have a solid returning cast of players, including Ty Rogers, Luke Goody, Dre Gibbs Longhorn, Sincere Harris is coming back, and they got a couple of pretty solid incoming freshmen. So if you go off of what Brad Underwood has done in the portal already as the head coach of Illinois, bringing in guys like Alfonso Plummer, Matthew Meyer, Terrence Shannon Jr., Marcus Damask, it's really looking pretty solid that he should be able to continue the success of bringing in solid players like the guys he's already brought in. And Joe Tipton tweeted out that Tre White, the transfer portal wing from the Louisville Cardinals, has committed to the Illinois Fighting Illini. And he averaged 12 points per game and 6 boards this past season for Louisville. And this will actually be his third school in college basketball because as a freshman, he committed to the USC Trojans. And then after one season out in LA, he decided to go to Louisville, which kind of made sense because Louisville had a ton of playing time available for Tre White since Louisville was in terrible shape. And even though Louisville was not a good team this season and Kenny Payne ended up getting fired, Tre White was not one of their issues. He had a very good season. The only problem with Tre White is that his efficiency metrics are not the best. He shot 45% from the field this past season at Louisville, which, to be fair, when you're on a really bad team, defenses might key in on you a little bit more because you're one of the better players, but still at 6'7", a 45% field goal percentage, it could be a little bit better. He only shot 29% from three this past season, and that's something that's going to be tough for Illinois with them losing guys like Marcus Damask and Coleman Hawkins and Terrence Shannon, who are really solid shooters this past year. Tre White's not a great three-point shooter. That could be a potential issue for Illinois. But what does help Illinois, though, is that they already do have a transfer portal addition that they got in Jake Davis, who transferred around a week ago to Illinois, and he is a much better three-point shooter than Tre White, and he's kind of a wing player as well, so maybe that will help out the Fighting Illini. And they got a guy in Luke Goody who should be back, who's a really good shooter. And Illinois, now with the addition of Tre White, they have 3 more scholarships available that they can still use in the portal to bring in good players. They probably need a center, and they probably need at least a couple of more guards because they are kind of wing heavy. But I do think Tre White and the addition of Jake Davis definitely help shore up the wing position for the Illinois Fighting Illini. Tre White's not a perfect player, but he is a guy that's still improving. He averaged 9 points per game as a freshman at USC. He upped it to 12 points per game at Louisville this past season. So maybe he can be a guy that averages around the same and maybe can improve his efficiency metrics at Illinois, being surrounded by better players. Because it's not always how many points you score. It's more often important how efficient you are from the floor. And the scouting report on Tre White is that he's a long playmaking front court player who offers versatility on both ends of the court, which means that he will definitely help out Illinois on the defensive end, something that they probably needed a little bit more of this past season. It's not that their defense wasn't bad, but they were a much more offensive-oriented team. He can handle the ball and get to the rim, which is huge when you're in the Big Ten, being surrounded by a lot of guys that are very tough and physical. You need to be able to get to the rim. He has an explosive second step. He's a good offensive rebounder, though he was just average at that at Louisville. So that's something Brad Underwood can possibly tap out of him there. He's pretty good in the mid-range, which is interesting because he's also a pretty good free throw shooter. So that always kind of translates. If you're a good free throw shooter, usually you should be a pretty good mid-range shooter. But like I said, the three-point shot is what he's got to get better at because he was a former 5-star recruit. If he was a better three-point shooter, he probably would already be in the NBA right now. So that's why he has to improve as a three-point shooter. And Illinois could be a really good program to help him out in that regard. But I do believe with the addition of Tre White, it shows that Brad Underwood is committed to the Illinois Fighting Illini basketball program. And that's why I think the addition of Tre White is so important, because if he was not locked into the Illinois job, why would the Fighting Illini have just got an important transfer portal addition in Tre White? They already got Jake Davis as well. So I think Brad Underwood's probably content to stay at Illinois, which is huge for the Fighting Illini because we know they had success back in the past with Bill Self and Bruce Weber. It was up and down. And way back in the past, they've had success. They're a good program, and Illinois is really funding their NIL right now, which is why they are landing these high-quality players. A lot of the guys that Illinois has been bringing in through the portal the last few years could play at almost any school in college basketball. So I think that Illinois is really prioritizing basketball even more than they are their own football team, which is very interesting because Illinois football has been up and down. But I think Illinois basketball has been the more consistent program at that school. They're really funding the college basketball team. And if Brad Underwood does stay at Illinois and doesn't take the Kentucky job, which to me with these additions in the portal, it doesn't seem like that's the case, but you never know. Anything can change. But I do believe if Brad Underwood stays committed to the program, Illinois should continue to be a solid program for years to come because they've been one of the better teams in the Big Ten the past few seasons, even though Purdue's been getting all the headlines. But with Zach Edey gone, maybe Illinois can take over as the best team in the conference. We'll have to see. But additions like Tre White are huge. Other guys that Illinois is looking at in the portal, Dante Maddox, the Toledo guard, AJ Storr, the Wisconsin wing/guard. Even though it does look like AJ Storr's looking at some other schools, it looked like he might have been a lock for the Illinois Fighting Illini when he first entered the portal from Wisconsin, but things might have changed there, but he still could end up at Illinois. Who knows? Kylan Boswell, the guard from Arizona, would be a really good fit for Illinois, in my opinion. And Kerry Booth, the Notre Dame big, and Xavier Amos, the Northern Illinois big, are two guys that could help out in the front court for Illinois. Like I said, Illinois needs a big, and they need a couple guards, but I do believe Brad Underwood's going to get it done. He usually does a good job filling up basically all the scholarships for Illinois with quality players. They got a lot of guys that could improve as well, like Luke Goody, Sincere Harris, who redshirted this past season. But Tre White, he's not a perfect player. He had some issues at Louisville this past season shooting the three ball, and he was on a really bad team. And the fact that he wasn't more dominant than he was this past season at Louisville when they were really bad shows that he has a lot of improving to do. But Brad Underwood has been tapping out the potential in guys lately. Most of their transfer portal players have improved at Illinois. I believe Tre White's a good addition to pair with Jake Davis, the other transfer that they've added for the wing positions. Illinois is looking loaded on the wing. And if Brad Underwood doesn't leave for the Kentucky job and he stays at Illinois and he fills up those other positions that they need with quality players, then Illinois should continue to be a solid basketball program next season. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about the Tre White addition for the Illinois Fighting Illini, and whether you like the addition for Illinois and whether you think he can be a guy that helps Illinois be a solid program next season, and what you think about the trajectory of Illinois basketball, and whether you believe that it's still on the rise, or if you think Illinois might take a bit of a step back next season if Brad Underwood leaves, or even if Brad Underwood's still the coach and you just think Illinois might not be as good next year. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.